everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Jane Greenway with Meridian Township Parks and Recreation, and I'd like to first introduce our township staff and our Department of Natural Resources staff that's here. And then I'm going to talk just a little bit about the program and the regulations, and then Glenn is going to give a brief presentation about hunter safety. And then the DNR representatives are going to talk a bit about chronic wasting disease and the process with the tags, because it's maybe a bit different than what you're used to. And then you'll move on to the indoor archery range for the equipment check and the proficiency test. And if you've hunted with us before, you do not need to do the proficiency test. If you like, you can do an equipment check and just have Glenn check it. That would probably be a good thing. So also with me here tonight is our Parks and Recreation intern, Central Michigan University student Nick Wing, and Kelsey Dillon, who is our stewardship coordinator, who's worked now for the township for 3 years. And she's out managing, doing the invasive species and doing things in the parks and land preserves, working with all the kids, doing the volunteer projects. And this is Chad Stewart. He is the deer and, I'm probably going to mess this up, the deer and elk expert for the state of Michigan.
That's exactly my title.
Okay. And that's what I refer to you as. And Chad Fidowa, he's our wildlife biologist for our area. So a lot of times I contact Chad Fidowa or the Report All Poachers hotline with the dead deer, but he's the one who people call with, any questions about what's going on, of course, in the area. And then Hannah Hart is back here. She's also with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, and she works over in the lab where the deer heads go. And she's the one who we send all of the tag information to. So let me see. After this part, and during and after the proficiency test, we will have the packets ready for you. And as we go along, we can just answer any questions. But this whole thing should take absolutely no longer than 2 hours. This indoor part, this classroom part, probably 35 minutes. So not too long. And first, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the program. We have all of the regulations printed out, both for the township's regulations and the regulations that go along with our DMAP, which is Deer Management Assistance Permit, which is a little different because of the chronic wasting disease. And Hannah will talk a little bit more about that. But I just want to talk a little bit about the program. This is our 7th year. And we're so thankful to have everyone here always, and our residents are too. And they're always calling and saying, how great it is. And I think that some areas are seeing a reduction in deer, others aren't, where we're hunting nearby. And as we all know, as township residents, these deer are living and reproducing and even having babies in people's backyards. And those are the kinds of calls I get. And I think I've told you that before. We get calls about deer having babies on people's back patios and dead deer, and what are we going to do? So it's still an ongoing problem, even though we do have the sharpshooting program going on, and there's still just an extremely high number of car accidents. So for whatever reason, there's still a lot of deer out there. When we began this program at the township, we did this at the request of the Meridian Township Board, and they did it because they were getting so many complaints for years about the deer. And some people say, oh, who cares? They're eating your geraniums. But as you all know, it's much more than that. It is thousands of dollars of damage to personal landscaping. But we get calls where, the husband's been in a car accident, their teenager, the wife, and it's dangerous. It's not safe. It's gross that there's deer poop all over everyone's backyards. Those are the kinds of phone calls we get. So everyone really appreciates you guys. And our hunters always tell me that they proudly wear their camouflage Meridian Township deer management hats, and that people will say thank you, if they see them at Quality Dairy afterwards. And that makes us really proud that you guys are making us look so good, because if you didn't, then we wouldn't be able to have this program. And that's, I think, what we try to emphasize the most, is to follow the rules in terms of checking in at the beginning and end of each day, reporting your deer hunting, and just basically to know that eyes are on you, and if things go bad, then we wouldn't have this program. So it's important, of course, always to take really good shots, and I use this example every year, but I do not want a mother calling us saying that a deer died in their backyard and their kids are, petrified of everything, and that we can't have that kind of stuff. And accidents happen, deer don't fall down right away, and they wander, and they do die in people's backyards. And as you all know more than me, that's archery for you. But thankfully, we have our police to help us if that ever happens. Don't ever hesitate to call 911. Call our cadet desk. They will come and help you. They're on your side. We are on your side. There's nothing to be. If you kill a deer and you didn't get it and you can't find it, don't be embarrassed to tell us. We want to know that kind of stuff, because the worst is when we get a call that's like, oh, there's this deer with an arrow sticking out of it, it's bought or whatever, and then it just looks bad, because it's like, oh, what are you guys doing? You're not being humane. So safety, and public image, very important. And don't make me look bad, and most of all, don't bait. No baiting because of the chronic wasting disease, and be on your best behavior, especially when wearing a Meridian Township hat. And our parks and land preserves are all open. And we have almost 2,000 acres of parks and land preserves in the township, and that's pretty cool. But with that, we have to manage it, of course. And that's part of our goal. Is we have a lot of ecological damage in the parks from these deer, of course, overbrowsing, and the wildflowers and the red oak that should be growing aren't regenerating. And there's things we have going on in terms of that Kelsey's involved with deer exclosures, where we study that and count the oaks and do different projects. But for us and as government, it's not just to make the residents happy about the deer. It is, but it's also to protect our natural resources. Just a few important things, but I would like you to read all your regulations. Always post that pink sign on your dashboard so that no one thinks you're, some weirdo hanging around outside their house. They know you're a hunter. Carry your hunter ID. Always be on your best behavior, because our parks and land preserves are open. So there are people that are jerks and walk their dogs and don't like hunting and do it on purpose. And they try to make it seem like they're not, and that's the way things go. But just don't yell at them or call them jerks or anything like that. If it's really like an ongoing problem, that's harassment. That's not allowable. And we can report, the situation to the poaching hotline. The police are always available to help, like I said, with anything. They're very involved and behind this program. If you're tracking, this is important, if you're tracking after dark, call the cadet desk and let them know. Otherwise, they get phone calls that there's, someone with a flashlight out walking in the woods. And as you know, archery only, where hunters are assigned to each site and generally are shooting downward from trees. It is okay to have ground blinds as long as they're very carefully placed away from the trails, and just so people don't feel uncomfortable. That sometimes when people simply see a tree stand, they might be uncomfortable. So it's just a little bit better to be a little bit more inconspicuous about this and to stay off the trails. If you are assigned to Lake Lansing North, they have specific spots designated where they want you to go. And Lake Lansing North, because it's an Ingham County park, it's a little bit different rules but it's kind of neat. They'll give you a gate key, and the staff that works there can help you find those stands. And the best part about it is that they'll bring your deer out for you. So that's like VIP. No one knew that. Yeah, or 911. The police are always willing to help you drag your deer. So, okay. So, of course, October 1 to January 1. Let me see. You might look at your assignment and say, oh, are they crazy? They put 4 people out here. They're nuts. And basically, we do the best we can, knowing most people work. People go out of town to go to Florida or Arizona, when it starts to get cold out maybe. And so we see how things shake out. And if it's terrible, then we can move you. No big deal. We just kind of do our best to know these properties. For example, the one on the corner of Tyhart and Cornell, mostly wet, probably only good for 1 or 2 people. Really, probably only one guy is going to be out there. Everyone works or has families. They can't really hunt every day, and we get that. we're making an effort. But we would encourage you to talk to each other about stand placement, share stands, things like that. It's just safer, as you know, to be out there with a partner, for someone to know that you're out there and to have someone help you. And all of these guys in this room are all willing to help you, always. When someone puts on Facebook and says, can someone help me track? People are always willing to help. If you have to go to work the next day and you got up early and you tracked your deer, but you got to get to the office, we'll come and get your deer in the driveway. It's fine. So that's assignments. So we'll see how things go and then take it from there. Processing, it's up to you. Again, the chronic wasting disease kind of shook things up. We used to donate all the deer, bring them to Marendorf's, Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger paid for the processing, and there we went from there. But then Marendorf's won't do it anymore, and we have one processor in Howell, Great Lakes, that is working with Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger and will do the processing. Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger pays them. And the recipient of our venison would be every year, I don't know if you've heard about the Mankowski Meridian Township Christmas party that's at Central Elementary. It's been going on for over 25 years, and it's for needy families in Meridian Township. And those are identified by the schools. And so they go there, Santa's there, everybody gets a present. And the venison is so popular because the food banks often just have canned goods and things like that. So we're going to try to get them a good donation this year. So again, the processing, I mean, obviously you can process your own deer, take it to any of these places, but if you do want it to get donated, there's a few options, but that's the one that we are working with for Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger to get it to that Christmas party. Sure. No. The problem with the donations, it's not the donations, it's always been the logistics of storing. And Chad and I have had 3-hour-long meetings about this. How do you keep it cold, especially when it's 90 degrees out? And so that it's not easy. It's you guys really doing a lot of help because you, as you know, you might not get the results back for a day or two, so you have to give the head to the check station, keep the deer cold, wait for your results, get it processed. So.
Is there any way to throw a cooler out at the Rose Lake station?
We'd have to just discuss the logistics of that, how much it may be used. We might be able to.
I mean, I don't know about anybody else in the room, but I still have venison in the freezer this year, okay? So, to sit there and keep banging deer, don't get me wrong, I like harvesting, but I'd rather see the deer go to a worthwhile purpose.
Right.
Rather than, and I give a lot of venison away to needy families, but I'd still rather see it go to the food banks and stuff like that, because then we know it's really doing what we wanted it to do.
It would be easier, and it might encourage more donation to
Right.
have it like that. We'll look into it. We can talk.
If you need help, then we gotta find a way of buying a cooler to throw out there.
Larry will pay for it.
You know what? I wouldn't mind, okay? We can work something out like that to get a cooler out there. There's a lot of good people in this room, and I'm sure a lot of people will step up to the table and say, yeah, let's get a cooler out there so we can donate it.
I know I took mine to Specialized out near St. John, and they've got a donation process. You just give them the deer, and they take care of everything else. They keep it cold, they process it.
And I think, isn't there that fellow in Williamston who does I think there's a few recipients that will do it. And that is totally, you're right, and that is encouraged and applauded.
There's a lot of local processors that work with different charitable organizations, I guess, or different food pantries. The Sportsmen Against Hunger program is pretty specific in who they allow. They have to have certain licensing levels to process deer for that program itself. But there are a lot, like Specialized works with the whole program, I think, and maybe a couple others. There's options around.
Is there a way we could get like a list of that?
Yeah.
Because I
Let's do
process
that.
everything on my own usually, but to donate something would be, I don't know.
I think Nick put a list in your
Processors,
packets.
but-
No, of all the processors.
It's just the Sportsmen Against Hunger bullets that I put in that.
Okay. We have a whole list of all the processors, so.
But I
Okay.
guess what we're looking for is not a list of processors per se, but a list of processors that we can use to donate.
Sure.
That's the real key.
Yep, we'll put that together.
And the piece of keeping it cold too, I mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
If
It's-
we can figure
That's
a
important.
list of all the options.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
And-
yes, I've not used the Howell processor myself, for donating, but what is their process? Are we required then to hold it until we get the test results, or can they take it right away?
I'm pretty sure they take it right away. Yeah.
They got cooler space.
Yep. That makes it easy then.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, it's a pretty long
Those
trip
are,
there.
yeah, those are the processors, I'd like a list of.
Yeah.
And when it get, and we will, and we'll get a good list going. And it might be, if you guys have them, if it is cold enough, we could get a pile of deer behind the service center and take them there in a truckload. We've done that before, so
That's
we
what
can
I'm
do
thinking,
that.
If we had a cooler where we could store for a day or two and then do a
Yep.
combined run, and take them all at one time, so you're not, running out 5 times a day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Another idea would be if somebody is planning on going to Howell, just post on Facebook when you expect to go. So
Thank you.
Someone else has one too.
Thank you, Tom. That's a great idea. And please do join Facebook and get on there. And that's the easiest way you have to tell us each day when you're hunting. If you want to tell us the night before, I'm going to be hunting tomorrow morning, that's fine. Or you can always email Nick or I and let us know, or call us. But the easiest way for us is Facebook. You just say checking in, but you don't have to. It's I think Nick put it on the first page of the the application, but it's Meridian Deer Management. So you just put that in the top and do a search for that, and then try to.
It's a private group, and there's
Yeah.
no date anymore, which is a good thing.
Right. Yes. All right. So reporting, processing, we'll talk a little bit about that. Oh, but again, report the deer to us, not to the police. Report them in a timely manner, if you could, please. Not a couple weeks later say, oh, yeah, we caught a couple does off this property. And give me your orange tag number, because I have to report that to Hannah. And she makes sure those numbers jive with the testing that she's doing. So all part of the chronic wasting disease. And, of course, we're happy to help. By doing this, we're helping the Department of Natural Resources, and we're proud to do so. And lastly, we feel very confident about our program, but we just want to make sure, again, safety for you guys first in the trees with harnesses, and Glenn is going to talk about that a little bit, and to have fun, and no question is stupid. You can ask. We're available for questions all after this, and so are the DNR folks. And let's see. Should we have you go now and then the DNR people? Would that be good? Okay, let's do that. Okay, thank you. Should I give this to him?
Okay, how's everybody doing tonight? Everybody okay? Good. I've seen a few of you guys before, so I recognize a few faces out there. So we'll go through this deal again. My name's Coach Glenn Bennett. I'm the MSU archery team coach here. Not only am I an archery coach, but I'm also an avid bow hunter myself. So everything I probably say tonight, Jane probably already talked about. So let's go on here. Maybe not. Okay, so freezing up on me. Okay, there we go. I see somebody bought a crossbow into the classroom. Those aren't really permitted in here, but restrooms and drinking fountain are outside the door there. Emergency exit, I don't think we have to worry about any tornadoes, maybe a hurricane. No smoking inside the building or any outdoor range. We're going to go through facility equipment, safety concerns, should be directed at center staff. So if you have any issues with the center staff or whatever in the archery range, just please bring it to our attention. I don't think we'll have any issues. Course goal is to reiterate hunter safety and local laws for hunters selected deer management in Meridian Township. We're actually glad to help you guys do that, and part of MSU is we're happy to help you guys out. Course objectives, prior to the hunt, equipment check, physical condition, and shooting skills. At the hunt, local laws and stands. After harvest, tagging, field dressing, and transportation. And of course, the archery proficiency test, range estimation, and all that kind of stuff. If you guys need to practice or anything else sighting in your bows, we're available here. We can shoot up to probably 90 meters outside, which is the length of a football field. So if you guys are up in a tree stand and need to shoot that far, good luck. All right, permits and location of hunts issued by Meridian Township. Follow all rules and regulations set by Meridian Township and plan accordingly for hunting location. I'm sure they probably appreciate that. Equipment check. This is probably, one of my big things is I do every year. I'll pull all my gear out prior to my hunts. Look for a dry rot. Some of you guys may hang your stuff up in the garage, so you want to make sure that there's no mold or animal damage. Proper function, proper fit. If you're kind of like me, proper fit it can be an issue. I like to eat a lot, so I might have to go out and buy an extra large outfit next year. This is probably one of the things that the DNR can probably emphasize too, is about making sure you guys are fit. You might want to make sure that you're kind of somewhat in shape, because you're going to be doing a lot of walking, light conditioning, stuff like that, walks, light workouts, because if you get stuck out there in the woods or something like that and you have to drag a deer out by yourself, no one there to help you, it can be pretty strenuous. I speak from experience on that too. So them deer get kind of heavy after a while. Shooting skills, practice, practice, practice. Don't be one of those type of guys that pulls the bow out the night before the hunt and decide you need to change strings and put a peep sight in or all that kind of stuff. So make sure your pins or whatever are set right, and practice range estimate. Most everybody now uses range finders and stuff like that, so I don't think that can be an issue. Local law enforcement, check with Meridian Township Police. You want to report location, time, make and model, and license plate of your vehicle, and most of all, cooperate with any COs, conservation officers. They appreciate it, and I'm sure you will too. Bow regulation. Bows must be in a case while you're transporting them. Just don't throw in the back of the pickup truck. You want to make sure that those bows are in cases and areas. Used to be I think the first year we started doing this was muzzle loading shotgun.
We did have shotguns the first year.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I had to kind of take that out. So it's only archery now, I guess. Tree stands. We highly recommend that you use a TMA tree stand. That's tree manufacturers approved tree stands if you're hunting out of a tree stand. And safety harness. I bought one of my local favorites here, Hunter Safety System. These guys were kind enough to send it to us here at Michigan State. We appreciate everything that they do. Also, you might want to consider putting a lifeline on your stand too, so when you go up, you're tethered. Portable stands only?
No, they just can't wreck too much of the tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's portable?
Yes.
Okay. No permanent tree stands? And from what I understand, you're supposed to have your name and address should be legible, preferably in English.
So that's a state
No.
law. or state law.
No Espanol? Okay.
I hate to be a pain in the butt about that one, but, one of the places I hunt's very sensitive, so I put my name and address on there, and I've had some run-ins with the people. Then my fear is now they're showing up at my house because they know my name and they got my address now, so.
You forgot to leave your telephone number.
Yeah, I don't do that, really now. What I've done is put Jane's name on there.
Right. That's a great idea. So, yeah, so everybody's got that. Put Jane's name and number and their address and everything.
That was legal, okay, they have contacts and they can track me down, but, few run-ins I had, I just didn't want those people chasing me in my house.
I can understand that. I mean, really about this program's been a really great program. I haven't heard of any complaints other than you guys aren't killing enough deer. So
I'll add that there's a rule that was changed statewide this year that it's now legal to put your sport card ID or your driver's license number on there instead of your name and address. And that way, no one can know exactly. There's a little bit more anonymity associated with it. That being said, if that's a rule
No,
of,
that's fine.
yeah, I don't want
I was-
to,
I was not
change the program rules, but from a statewide perspective, you can do that now legally, and that does afford that sort of,
I feel better about that.
yeah.
Yeah, hopefully our COs know that law. I was not aware of that. Okay. During gun season, you must wear orange hat, vest, or coat while hunting during firearm season. I think that's still a state law. I'm still good on that. Orange camouflage must be 50% orange. Recommended that bow hunters wear some orange to and from hunting spots. I think that's one of the things we talked about last year, but I don't think it's a state regulation. But some people might want them. Safe no shooting zones, I don't know if any of that's changed or not. No shooting within 150 yards of any building. That's-
That has changed. Yeah, so you previously needed permission from a landowner within 150 yards of any building. That has changed for hardship equipment.
Okay, so I gotta take that out. You cannot discharge a firearm or bow from a vehicle. I don't think that's changed. Maybe in some cases, I'm not sure. I don't wanna get into that discussion. Check hunting rule book for shooting times. That kinda changes, with time change and everything else like that. Tagging the animal, attach the tag as soon as the downed animal is located. Do not destroy the sex of the animal. Transportation of animal, please be considerate while transporting, taking animals, and not to offend residents and non-hunters. Remove animal ASAP. You know, a lot of this program is too, there's a lot of people out there that are non-hunters. They don't really have an opinion about hunting whatsoever, other than they don't like their geraniums, you know, chewed up and their hedges and stuff like that. Spend a lot of money. So, you know, it's up to you guys to put your best foot forward and make sure that, you know, you're transporting that and not field dressing the animal in somebody's backyard or, you know, Bobby's sandbox, stuff like that kind of stuff. I'm sure it would probably be done, but anyways, please be considerate. I think that's the most important thing. And we talked about processors. I need to update my PowerPoint. Any questions? Nope. Okay, next.
Hannah, or do you want the spotlight on your own?
Nope, we're good. I'll share, I guess. I'll be nice today.
Start disease stuff. All right. All right. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. My name's Chad Stewart. I'm a deer biologist based out of Lansing. I'm also a Meridian Township resident, and I'm also a hunter in this program too. So it's kind of a special program.
He has one of those lake plants in north.
Yeah, it does.
No keys in these pockets there. No, I promise. So I'm just going to touch on sort of the disease aspect of what we're doing here. Obviously, this program has been in place now for 7 years. Jane mentioned we've identified CWD now for 3 years. So obviously, this program precedes, you know, detecting the disease in the state, which is really still one of the only places in the state where we've identified the disease in free-ranging deer. So we were fortunate to have that partnership established once we found the disease. We have taken some sort of dramatic actions to try to curb the spread of the disease. We do incorporate the use of sharpshooters outside of the season. And where they've been active, they have had an impact on the deer population. But there are plenty of deer still left in Meridian Township, even where they shoot in some of the core areas where they're active. I can assure you that there's still deer there, and there's still really good deer there. We just had meetings with some of those guys this week, and they assured me that there were some really nice deer still running around. So there's still really good hunting to be had, and I think that's really one of the take-home messages, that this disease is out there. It doesn't have to be the end of hunting. It can sort of coexist with it. We just have to make some changes in how we operate. So if you don't know what chronic wasting disease is, or CWD, it's basically a neurological disease that affects slowly, obviously, the central nervous system in the deer. Takes about 1.5 to 2 years before it sort of progresses all the way through their body and they start to show symptoms. To date, we've identified 9 animals in the state with CWD. 5 of them have come from Meridian Township. The other 4 have come from sort of spread out across southern Clinton County. But 5 of them have been right in Meridian Township. The good news is the ones that we've been finding in Meridian Township, and we've got a lot of deer sampled from Meridian Township, well over 1,000. Was it 1,200? Yeah, it's 1,200 or 1,300 we've been testing in about these 3 years. We've only found 5 that have been positive. And those 5 have literally been all pretty much stacked up one on top of one another. They've been all in the same general vicinity. So we could certainly have a positive anywhere in the township, anywhere in the state. But so far, we've been finding them only in one general area. All those 5 have basically had some sort of relationship to one another, either sort of a parent offspring, half sibling sort of thing. We do genetic work on it. So that tells us, based on the number of deer that we're finding positive versus what was been sampled, and the fact that they're all related somehow, tells us that we've kind of caught this disease very early. It's not a widespread disease across the landscape, potentially even in Meridian Township, but it is still a very serious disease that we want to sort of get control of and try to nip in the bud before we gets out of control. Places that have had this for 40, 50, 60 years are starting to see declines in their deer population. It's actually impacting their hunting. So we don't want to get to that point. We're very fortunate that we're only in the 0.1% infection rate, or what we call prevalence rate. Other places, it's, you find it initially 1, 2, 3%. And now some places that have been dealing with it for 40, 50 years, 1 out of every 2 deer are infected with the disease. And that's actually having a tremendous impact on their population. And they're starting to see that now. Because of the disease, obviously things have changed. The program has had to shift a little bit and pivot, and we appreciate the township's flexibility in doing that. This is one of the only places in the state where you have to check deer in. We've got now 20 townships in the state, all associated with this, what we call DMU 333, which will have maps provided, and that shows check stations where you can take your deer in to get it tested, and you'll get a result back from the lab. Usually within 7 business days. They're usually a lot faster than that, but we sort of guarantee a 7-day turnaround from a business day standpoint. We've got a number of options where you can obviously take deer. Obviously your deer license and your combo license are obviously valid during this hunt. If you purchase a DMU 333 antlerless license, which we have discounted 40% from other statewide licenses, instead of the $20 license, now you can get that license within DMU 333 for $12. That's valid. And then obviously you've got disease control permits, which I believe Jane and others will be handing out associated with that. And we can talk about those. Hannah will go into more detail on the disease control permits. The big issue with the disease control permits versus the other licenses is the forfeiture of antlers, okay? If you take a deer in 333 with a disease control permit, because it's a free permit that you're getting, we are requesting that you give up the entire head of the animal, including the antlers. The reason we do that is because these permits are available 365 days a year. And obviously, to give a free permit to someone right before hunting season and they can get a nice buck out of it that they've been watching all year, doesn't sit well with a lot of people. So when you have these permits and licenses in your hand, think about what you're using or what you're going to be tagging your animal on. If it's a really great buck, we will work with you on it, tag it with your license or your combo license. We will not take those antlers. We will not cut into it at a check station. We'll work with you, whether you want to do a European mount or a shoulder mount. We will work with you on that. But if you are tagging that deer with a disease control permit, you will probably lose those antlers. So please don't put yourself in that position. Use your disease control permits first and foremost for the does you want to harvest and the meat that you want to get in the freezer. That's a no-brainer right there. So with that, I'm going to switch it over to Chad, and he's going to talk about some of the logistics. And then at the end of this, maybe we'll grab questions from everybody. Does that sound good?
As Jane said, I'm Chad Fidoa. I'm the local biologist. I have been working with you guys, it's going on 5 years now, maybe the 5th year. So it's been interesting to see the program develop and change over time. And hats off to all you guys. I have got almost 0 complaints about this program. It's fairly unique across the state, I believe, and it's very well run by the township. You guys are doing a great job, and as has been said several times, you guys are kind of ambassadors for the sport in this area. So being conscientious and aware of what you're doing and how it looks is pretty important. But anyway, how many people have brought a deer to a check station ever? Okay, good. So this won't be new to you. So as Chad said, we've got some maps. They have all the locations. Most of you are probably going to come to the Rose Lake office where I work out of, or the Williamstown Township office. We've got check stations in both places. There's 3 other ones in DMU 333, but I think those are probably the main ones you'll be coming to. So when you bring the deer to the check station, we're going to get some of the info from you. If you're using the disease control permit, like Chad said, we're going to take the whole head, antlers and all, if it's a buck, and we'll have the information on the tag, that it's a disease control permit. We'll ask, the location, and if you put your own tag on it, we will scan that, and your name will go into the database with that animal. And if any deer come up positive, we'll get a phone call pretty quickly within a day or 2 to let you know that animal's positive. So in case you did take it to a processor or you processed it yourself, we'll let you know pretty quickly whether that animal is positive or not. Luckily, we have not had to do that yet with anybody in this program. So it's a pretty quick process coming to the check station. If you don't get there on November 15th or 16th at 11 in the morning when everybody's coming out of the woods and bringing their deer, but even last year that was not that bad. We get you in and out pretty quickly. In most cases less than 5 or 10 minutes. So if you're in a hurry, we'll still bring it. We want to get you into the system, get you registered. You have technically 72 hours to get it to us, but for the most part, most guys bring it almost right out of the field to us, and that's pretty good. So I don't think I'm missing anything.
Do they have a drop box there, or do they close at certain times?
What's that? No, we do have for disease control permits. If you have the tag on it and it's after hours, we do have a box at the Rose Lake office that you can leave the head in, but that can get a little tricky with this program because we might not know, unless you got your name written on the tag and the contact info, we might not know who that deer came from. Most disease control permits, we have it, landowners' identification is on it, so it's easier to track down, but it's probably best if you can get it to a check station. We're not open, 24/7, so it can be a little inconvenient for some folks, but we would probably prefer that. But in a pinch, work with us, we'll work with you. Important thing is we get the sample. I mean, that's bottom line. We want the sample, and we'll work with you on that. Yeah, so in the past, with CWD rules, you had to bring in the whole carcass to a check station. That was pretty cumbersome for a lot of people, especially when it's warm. You want to get the deer, especially if you get it in the evening and we're already closed. Get it hung, get it skinned out and cooling down pretty quickly. You can just bring in the head. That's perfectly okay. That's got all the material we need to do the testing, so that is one change that has come up in the last year or so. So I will hand it to Hannah. She'll explain the disease control permit tags a little bit, and then we can answer some questions.
Can I not use that? Can everybody hear me okay?
I think it's for the camera.
Oh, really? Oh, shoot. Okay. I'm not a great public speaker, so everybody work with me. I am not, but I'll take it. Okay, so this year you guys are all gonna have to scan your disease control permits, which is what you guys are using. So do not take out your license and give it to them when you are dropping off the deer for this hunt, please. I grabbed a replacement license instead of a disease control permit, but your guys's will actually have a barcode on here, and you just hand it over, so please don't bring it to them like this. You know, or I understand blood. It's everywhere. You're out there, you're gutting the deer. I completely understand that. That's fine. But please just try and keep the barcode legible. They are not going to be able to manually type in the barcode number, and that the barcode number is actually the driver's license of
Our director.
the director. Okay, so you guys all have that now. Yeah. Yes. So keep that legible, please. So the orange CWD tag is also going to have to be on your head. You guys will all get these in your packets. And actually, if you want to just go ahead and put the driver's license number right here where it says driver's, thank you. Yeah, where it says driver's license or sport card before you even go out there and use your tags, that would be wonderful as well. But you are going to put your information where it says name, address, and telephone number. That's going to be you guys, okay? But the driver's license number is going to be Luann's, and that again is also, it's already on your kill tag. I think that's it. That's all I have. So
So I forgot that this portion, I forgot these tags will be included for you guys. So the head box, or the head drop-off box, will work if you have this, because that will identify you as long as securely attached to the head. So
whose
driver's
license goes on this card? Mine or?
the one on your
on the kill tag.
green
So
kill tag.
You guys are each gonna have 2 kill tags right in the package. So you guys are each gonna have 2 green, lime green, lime green kill tags, and then 2 orange CWD tags. And on the green kill tag is going to be the driver's license number, and that is what we are going to be using to track the data of the deer that you guys get with this hunt.
And Hannah put together a handout that you'll see in the
Yes.
packet that says all of that, and it says,
Yeah.
write it here, tear off this.
Yeah, and my number is on there as well, so you guys can call and bug me if you need to.
And the green tag needs to be affixed to the ear or leg of the deer?
Yeah, so
correct?
basically these things, will you tag it and tear in half? So those are perforated, obviously. So the top portion is going to go on the head. The bottom portion is going to go on the body. So,
You mentioned something about scanning the tag?
yes. Yeah, so the tag, the top and the bottom portion of the tags have barcodes on them. And those will need to be scannable when you guys go to drop your heads off.
I was thinking scan it and copy it out on the computer.
No, I mean if you want to, that's up to you. But yeah, you don't need to do that. No,
That's at the
we'll scan at the check station.
Yeah, the check station, when we log it in, we have there are actually phones now that we're using to just reads the barcode and links it up to your sample.
That's just the top portion of the tag, right? The green tag that's gonna be on the head?
Correct. Yep,
So
the other
top portion
part
of
goes to
green
the
tag, and
carcass.
then this tag as well. But then you take this part, the bottom portion, you take that off for you, and that is for you guys to check the results. So there is 2 different ways you can call me and bother me at the lab for your results, or you can go online and type in the number and your results will come up. And if not, if you wait longer than, we say 5 to 7 business days, we're pretty quick at the lab, I'd like to think. I'm a little biased, so since I work there. You can feel free to give me a call though, if you waited.
Is that changed from last year? Didn't we just use the orange tags last year? We didn't have to have the green?
No, they were just purple.
They were purple.
They change them every year. But, and then also on that orange tag number is the number that we need, you guys to email us and say, I killed a deer at Davis Foster with this orange tag number. And then I give that, every week we give a spreadsheet to Hannah that says Jerry Harb, December 5th, the property and the number.
But you split that tag in half. We've never done that in the past.
Oh, well, you can. If you want to put the whole thing on the head, go for it. Basically, that's just, more or less so we know you're not shooting deer outside of season illegally. So a lot of that's for the COs. Again, you guys are a different group because you guys are a part of this hunt.
I think last year, we have this program is for township residents, but we also allow Meridian Township employees to participate. And if you do take advantage of that, and they don't live in the township, they might live in Leslie, Charlotte, and if that's outside of that area, and if they're hunting at night and they have a deer and they don't want to transport it out and back in?
Yeah, we've relaxed that a little bit. So again, our main goal is to get the sample. So if they track it and find it at night, we're closed. They can take it home. They can do what they need to do with it and bring it back to us. We just don't want to discourage people from bringing it to say, yeah, you have to bring it before you can take it home, because we'll lose a lot of samples that way, and that's sort of against kind of what we're trying to do here. Somebody have a question over here? You already?
I just got a question about you guys working with the sharpshooters. Like, say we go another year and we don't get any positive CWD tests back. Do you have a timeline as far as how much longer they'll continue to shoot? Or?
Yeah, we've kind of been operating under the premise of about 3 years without a positive, provided we're getting adequate samples. And we've got staff that goes out 5 days a week and picks up roadkill. We've got obviously these disease control permits that are great for this hunt, but obviously private landowners as well in the area that have generally more than 5 acres. So again, if you guys have large landowner tracts in Meridian Township, Hannah would probably be willing to give you additional ones for your specific property as well. So again, something to consider there. And then obviously the hunter harvest numbers where we get most of the samples from. Our last positive animal it's probably been a year since we found one in Meridian Township. November 16th was an eagle. So we're about a year away from finding a positive in Meridian Township, and we've tested several hundred deer since then. So again, we're not really happy. We have the disease. It is what it is. But going from the timeline from when we first found the disease to where we're at now, I think everybody in the department would take it. And I know a lot of other states dealing with it would take the numbers that we have as well. Arkansas found it after we did, and they're at like 1 out of every 4 animals they're testing in that core area has it. It was just rampant for probably decades. So we're really fortunate that we found it when we did. We're really fortunate to have partners and individuals willing to help and call in roadkill, kill deer, and submit them for testing. We're giving it our best shot at it. Yes, sir.
Have you learned any more about the natural history? I mean, has this been around for 1,000 years or 500 years? Is this something new that came up in the last 200 years? I mean, it seems odd that it would pop up in the last
Yeah.
years. If there's been a natural cycle where all the years go way down because they left.
Yeah, I think so. CWD is part of a larger group of diseases called transmissible spongiform encephalopathy. So you've heard of mad cow in cattle. Mink have it. Farmed mink can have it. Obviously, there's different forms that humans can contract as well. Yep. So these type of diseases have been around. Scrapie is the oldest one that's really known, and that's been around for well over 100 years that they've known about. This disease was first identified in elk out west in the 50s and 60s. So we don't know that it's been around for a while. Given what we're seeing now in like free-ranging animals in Wyoming, where it lays sort of low for a very long time and slowly builds in your herd, and once it gets to a certain point, there's like an inflection point where it starts increasing at a rapid speed, that's because these prions stay in the environment for decades. What the common thought is that it's more of an environmental contamination issue. The more it's out there, if we have 1 out of 1,000 deer that's infected, the environmental contamination is not that big of a deal. You're just really focused on the animals that one is directly interacting with. When you have 500 or 1,000 animals that are positive, they're all urinating, they're all defecating, they're all creating little micro infectious areas in the environment where it stays in the soil, it can be taken up into the plants, and then more and more animals become exposed to it. So what you see is the longer it persists on the environment, the more and more animals that get it, sort of at an exponential growth rate. So we don't think it's been around for a long time. The state's tested well over 34,000 deer, really starting, probably going back to the late 1990s, 1998, but really picking up in 2002. We've tested deer all over the state, and this is the first ones we found in free-ranging deer. So we don't think it's been in the state very long, and we don't think it's really been in the continent very long, given how it's been moving since we've been studying it. So it's kind of weird. No one knows really how it started or where it came from. It's a lot of smoking guns, though.
How about this new email that the DNR sent out today in Genesee County?
That's hemorrhagic disease. So hemorrhagic disease is very different than chronic wasting disease. Hemorrhagic disease is a virus. It's very specific seasonality, so you don't hear of hemorrhagic disease reports in late winter or early spring. It's really a sort of late summer, fall transmission. Hemorrhagic disease has the potential to have a more dramatic impact on your deer herd initially or in a shorter time frame. And the best example I can give is go talk to someone in like Ionia County in 2012, where hundreds of deer have died from that disease. So it can be extremely virulent. It can run through the deer very quickly, but deer can recover from it. It doesn't kill every deer that's affected with it. It cannot be transmitted from deer to deer. So that's different compared to CWD, which they can live with for a long time, but they're infectious. They contaminate the soil, the environment, and you cannot get rid of it, and there's no recovery. So what happens when we see hemorrhagic disease is the animals may or may not be impacted from a population standpoint, but then the following year there's actually immunity built up in the herd based on survivors that had the disease and can pass it on to their fawns. So you rarely see outbreaks occurring in consecutive years, and that gives the herd a chance to rebuild. So
From a bug that comes out of the ground.
it's a little biting midge, they call it. You know, the best way I'm not an entomologist, but you know, the cans of off that you see it, you know, keep away ticks, mosquitoes, no-see-ums. It's basically one of those no-see-um type things. Really tiny, transmits the virus, basically gives it a fever, and that fever may or may not kill the animal probably within 7 or 10 days.
When it happens when it's really dry, because we haven't had much rain.
More profound when you have a dry summer. I'm not too worried about the disease that they just announced in Genesee. We felt compelled to report it because it is a notable disease. But typically, when you get that first hard frost in the fall, that kills those midges and it shuts down the transmission of the disease itself. So we're in late September. If we just sent out a release in like late July of hemorrhagic disease, you can like clutch the pearls type thing. It's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. But at this point, we're almost into October. We're almost coming up on the first frost. Shouldn't be too big of a deal.
Is that the same as blue tongue then?
Common terms, yes. We make a specific distinction between hemorrhagic disease and blue tongue. They are two separate viruses. And the reason we say that is hemorrhagic disease to a sheep farmer, not a big deal. If you have blue tongue virus to a sheep farmer, it's extremely lethal to sheep. So we do specify between viruses, but common terms, you go on sportsman's forums and stuff like that, they often refer to it as blue tongue. It's typically hemorrhagic disease. Very related. To a deer, it doesn't really make much of a difference, but to other animals, it can be a big difference. Any other questions on disease, check stations, control permits, hunting?
Hours of the check stations, do we know those yet?
Yeah, they're on the maps. They're on the map, so you can grab a copy. The Rose Lake one is from 9 to 7 every day. Williamston 9 to 5. Lansing 8 to 5. Eagle 9 to 7, and Riley Township 9 to 5.
9 to 5, 8 to 5. It varies on where you're at.
There's a handout. There's a small map on the bottom of the package that you guys are going to get, and it'll have all that information in there.
So I guess just for your information, we've played with hours these last 2 years dealing with this. We've tried later hours, we've tried earlier hours, but no matter what we do or where we do it, like 80% of our deer to come to a check station between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. That's just how it is. So we've tried mixing it up a little bit, try to make it convenient because we know most people work and can't get to a check station sometimes before 7 o'clock. But again, that's why you've got 72 hours. We're open on the weekends too. You can have somebody else take your head for you if you're too busy to do it, as long as you got your license attached to it. So that's kind of why those hours are the way they are. We're trying to be as convenient as we can, but also being responsible with our manpower and resources, trying to accommodate most of the people most of the time.
I think we'll all be around later if anybody has any other questions.
Okay, so they have the check station maps up here and some information